Okay, I want to talk a little bit about federalism being a compromise between what we had when we were colonies under British control with King George III being in power and what we created after the Revolutionary War is over, when we create our first constitution called the Articles of Confederation, and we create 13 sovereign states that work together and give a national government that they create very, very, very few powers. And so the Articles of Confederation only lasted from 1781 to 1789, so obviously they were not very effective because they only lasted a few years. All right, so what I have on the top here is King George III, so we were going to let him represent the national government. He is basically the three branches of government. And then you have the colonies who have virtually no power. They were subject to the whims of the king. They were supposed to pay the taxes, and once again, going back to those few years where we have the Quartering Act and the Stamp Tax and the Sugar Tax and the Townshend Acts and the Intolerable Acts and all of those going back and forth. The king is saying you're going to do this, and the colonies who virtually had no say-so in this national government. Remember, taxation without representation. They just want a say in this national government, but they have no say. And at the opposite end of this spectrum, we're so fearful of doing this, we create a extremely weak national government and give sovereignty or that absolute authority to the states. So we're going from the colonies having no say in Parliament to the states and giving this new national government under the Articles of Confederation really no way to enforce anything and giving all power and sovereignty to the states. So when we look at what happens here, obviously we fight the Revolutionary War because what was happening with King George III, we're not happy with that. So then we have the Articles of Confederation, which we think is going to be much better, but once again, we don't have an executive. We have no way to enforce anything. And we have incidents happening like Shays' Rebellion, and so we're realizing this isn't going to work. We've gone too far in the opposite direction. So we find federalism somewhere here in this center where we're going to compromise, where we're going to give some power to a central authority or national authority, and then still maintaining some powers that are going to be retained by the states. So the Constitution that we create creates a federal system. We're not at one extreme where we have no power in a national government or no say-so in our national government to a national government that has no say and has no control over the states. So the Federalism Compromise is, what we're saying here is, we're going from colonies with zero power and no say-so in a national government to states being sovereign and a national government really having no authority, to having a system of government where the national government and the states share power with each other. And we also know that if there are any conflicts between those two, we can look at the Supremacy Clause in Article 6 and determine that national laws are going to be sovereign. But at the end of the day, the Constitution is over all of that, and it is the supreme law of the land.